very aromatic. Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Lüning, Horst Lüning. I'm the master taster of Whisky.com, and today we have an Irish whiskey here on my cask, and it's called Jamerson Caskmates. Well, which mates? Well, the Jameson distillery gave casks away to a neighboring beer brewery, and in particular a stout beer brewery. It's called the Franciscan Wells, and they used those wooden oak casks for the maturation of their beer. And well, after that, the casks were returned to the Jameson distillery and were used for finishing Jameson whiskies. So this one is a liter bottle from the travel value. It's quite cheap, around 30, and has 40% ABV. And well, the beer. It's a stout beer, and those stout beers, they are very, very dark, and they tend to have a higher ABV, not always, but quite often. But I do not know how strong the beer was which lay in those casks. And in former times, when beer was delivered by cask, the cask had a thicker stave, a bigger, larger stave thickness. And this was because there is pressure in a cask from the carbon dioxide. So, and this pressure has to be, well, held inside the cask, and therefore you had those thicker staves. And you have more rings on a cask, well, and that the oak, the bitterness of the oak, does not give taste into the beer. It was typically lined inside with some organic material. Well, they took some covering, some, how it's called, raisins. Yeah, I don't know exactly. But these casks were whiskey casks, so the staves were thinner, and I thought about, well, how are they able to mature a pressurized beer inside a cask? And well, stout beer does not have too much carbon dioxide in it, so it lies like dead in the glass, in contrast to these Middle European and German beers, which are very foamy and contain a lot of carbon dioxide, and they build pressure a lot. So this stout beer contains also hops, the bitterness of the hops, and well, these bitterness of the hops should have gone inside this whiskey for or during the finishing period. So this is a typical Jameson triple distilled Irish whiskey aged in craft beer barrels. So smaller cask barrels. Stout edition. And here on the top some words. Coffee, smooth seasoned oak barrels, hint of hops, stout, smooth chocolate, barrels, rich coffee, seasoned oak, hint of hops. So it's not completely readable. I think it should be this way. Yeah. So it's a metal screw cap. I do not like very much because they're so thin and they tend to loosen over the time because this seal inside the cap is not that thick, and it loses the tension, and you have to be careful not to over screw the cap. So I do not like those metal caps. Very aromatic, and the first is fresh, light fruits like apple, pears, peaches, together with the typical Irish vanilla or Jameson vanilla from the casks. And then in the back there's some, well, spiciness and hops coming up. There was, yes, the bitterness, the spicy bitterness of hops. It's not the hops which are bitter itself. It's a yellow powder inside those dolls, and it's called Lublin, and the outside gives a floral character. Yeah. Bitterness from hops. Excuse me, I do not like beer. It's too bitter for me. So I avoid drinking beer. And during the last 10 years I had 1 or 2 beers, and definitely I haven't finished them. So it's too bitter for me, and this hops, weird. And but on the other side of the screen, typically 2/3 of the watchers like beer. So this might be a whiskey for you who like hops, but not for me. No. There's a little citrus note and probably a little bit of green tea. And it says sweet hops. No sweetness. It's bitter for me. Yeah. So it's the normal Jameson, young Jameson whiskey I already had some of, together with this bitterness from the hops. Yeah. No, not for me. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned, and if you want to discuss this whiskey with me, please do so in our vlog or the forum on Whisky.com.